Hey everyone, thanks for sticking around. I'm really excited to introduce Greg from Eatabit. He's going to be chatting about how he built his business. One of the most awesome things that I love about Greg is just his story about how he was a software engineer and he built a really cool hardware product. So, Greg, if you want to come up and share your story with everyone and what you built.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you, Vanessa. Thanks, guys. Thanks for showing up. My company is Eatabit.com. I'm a co-founder there, and we created a super efficient food ordering system. Just some basic terms, what does it mean for a system to be efficient? Well, an efficient system is one that maximizes output for minimal input, sort of standard definition there. So what does it mean for a food ordering system to be efficient? Well, food ordering systems today are certainly complex systems, to be sure, but they're composed of basically two components, right? You have the customer side, which is today takes the form of apps and websites where customers come, order food. You've all probably done that experience before. Then there's the other side of it, which is, I'll just refer to as the restaurant side, where that order is handed off to the restaurant, right? Now that sounds like an efficient system, right? So what's wrong with that? Well, the problem is, if we take just the customer side, there's a lot of, you've all heard of app fatigue, right? Like people are just tired of downloading apps, and the research says that people typically use between 4 and 5 apps, even though there's obviously millions of apps in the App Store. And if you think about the food ordering experience, websites and apps, even though apps have come a long way since the beginning, you're really sort of filling out forms for food, right? It's just an extension of that. Now, if we take a look at the restaurant side, I don't know how many people have gone into a restaurant and seen this sort of cluster over here. It looks like a Starship Enterprise. Well, some poor restaurant staff member has to be trained on that and sort of manage it and deal with it. And also think about the end of the night, they have to reconcile the books from all these different systems in whatever way they do. So I think there's a lot of inefficiency in the current state of food ordering. So if you think about it this way, there's 14 months left till 2020, right? It's coming around the corner. So I'm calling this stuff out as legacy, right? So what we wanted to do is build something super efficient and sort of break this model. So let me actually just show you what we built. Can I go over to my phone, please, Mr. DJ? Oh, there we go. All right. So this, I should say, this system composed of Twilio Programmable SMS and Twilio Programmable Wireless, and I'll get into that, but I just want to show it to you here. So let's send a message, and let's order some food. All right. I'm hungry. All right, so you can see there, it's got, it knows how long the deliveries and pickup orders are going to take. So let's just do delivery. There's some little weird bug with iOS with the mic on the second. Delivery. Oops. Delivery. There we go. All right, so you're probably thinking, who cares, right? This is like 5 years ago's bot, right? But let's take it to the next level. Chicken fingers, mozzarella sticks, large cheese pizza with extra cheese, 20 ranch flavored wings with a side of ranch, medium cheese pizza with extra cheese, George Street sandwich with mushrooms, side of fries, 3 sides of marinara, medium Italian American pizza, add half anchovies and half pepperoni. All right, let's see what happens here. Oops. Oh, you know what? I skipped a step there. Let me cheat. Okay, now it's asking me what to order. I'm just gonna paste that back in. Now let's see what happens. Got to pay attention to these bots. Okay, look at this. It looks like it picked up on an ambiguity in my order with the chicken fingers. There's 2 chicken finger items on the menu. So let's just pick the second one. I'm just going to use the keyboard from here on out. You guys don't need to hear me talk to this thing. Right. This is all, like I said, this is all Twilio Programmable Wireless. So okay, look, we've got a low resolution summary of the order here with a little total. That looks good. Let's just go next. Tip, let's be generous. It's a demo order anyway, right? And here we go. We got another low resolution summary, just with the tip included. So this looks good. Let's go to done here. And now let's come over here. Should work. So in the background, a command is coming down, a Twilio command. I'll tell you about that in a minute. I might as well shout out our developer on the back end, Jerry Hardy. Come on. You can do it. Oh, something weird is happening. All right, so now the device placed in the restaurant is trying to get the attention of the staff. So let's hit this super obvious button here. See what happens. Look at this. So let's see what we got here. There's my original order that I spoke in for the second time. We got our chicken fingers, mozzarella sticks, large pizza, extra cheese on the whole thing, 1 medium pizza with extra cheese on it, George Street sandwich with fries. There's 3 marinara extras. We've got a medium Italian American pizza. Look at that, anchovies on the left, pepperoni on the right, and there's our wings, ranch flavor with ranch dressing, and a nice tip for the driver. So that's what we built. And here we've got just a copy of our receipt. That's Twilio MMS, little PNG coming in. If I can go back to my screen here. So there it is, an end-to-end food ordering system built with Twilio SMS and Twilio Programmable Wireless. We're actually using a super SIM in here. We got a little early release on that. So let's talk about efficiency on that system, because I called out those other systems. If you think about SMS, it's one of the only apps that's installed on every single phone. Everybody knows how to use it. And remember how I mentioned those 4 to 5 apps that everybody, or that people just have a tendency to use? Messaging is definitely one of them. And we were able to use natural language when we interacted with this, and we ordered the items. So I'm not making any UIs. I'm not creating any apps. It's a very low surface area application to maintain. And you could imagine, I'm using Twilio SMS here, but you can imagine hooking this up to Alexa or any of these other sort of speaker devices, or chat or something like that. It's just text coming in, right? So let's think about efficiency on the restaurant side. This device is plug and play. All I do is plug this into power. It boots up, connects up to the Twilio network, and it's ready to go. We ship these things all over the United States, and restaurant staff just unbox them and plug them in. That's all they do. No tech goes out there to hook something up to Wi-Fi, right? And paper is actually universal. It's a universal method of transcribing an order. If you think about even like a high-end restaurant that has a super expensive point-of-sale system, this printer sitting there, the person can come and just type it in and put it on the steak, or even the most lowly type of restaurant, like a food truck. The printer sitting there, the guy puts it up on the speed rack, starts working on it. So paper it's weird. It's a universal product. Back one. So when my business partner and I, Stuart Moore, we started working on this product. We started working on it about 4 years ago, but we did not start with the idea of a physical device, a printer, and SMS. We still wanted to solve the problem of We want to make the Amazon.com of food ordering. Right? We want to be able to order food from any restaurant all over the country. So we knew we had to scale something out that was easy to scale out because we didn't have any money and we didn't have that much time. We both work full-time jobs. So Stuart has a long history in F&B, and as we were designing this, he said, when you're sending an order to a restaurant, the customer really has to know two things, right? They need to know, did the restaurant get the order? And if so, how long will it be? Like, that's the minimum amount of information you've got to come back to a customer with, and for them to be assured that the process is working. So we looked at the customer side. We said, okay, what's universal? A website, standard website, no problem, we can build that. Then we looked at the restaurant side, like, right, how are we going to get that order from the cloud into the restaurant's hands, and into every restaurant's hands, actually. So we thought, what's the one piece of technology that every restaurant has regardless? And it's the telephone, right? So this is actually how we started with Twilio. We started with a voice product. We basically built an IVR, an outbound IVR. So what we did was we took menus and we recorded little WAV files of every ingredient you could think of, sauce, tomato, delivery, napkin, everything. Put those all up in the cloud. So when the customer would check out, it would go to the back-end system. The back-end system would see that order, stitch together from all these individual WAV files into a sentence, pepper some grammar in there, and then it would call the restaurant. So we built it. It worked using Twilio Voice. And at the time we were really naive, and we thought if we just built this thing and told a couple of restaurants about it, that we'd be millionaires immediately, because everybody would just be pounding on our doors to get this product and carry us down the street on their shoulders, some glorious new form of celebrity. Didn't really actually work that way. We had a lot of trouble with sales, and we got to the point where we didn't really have any customers. We built this whole thing. So we said, this thing kind of advertises itself. It makes outbound calls. So let's just turn it on for Charleston. Charleston, South Carolina is where I'm from. So we configured a bunch of restaurants, turned this thing on, and we did some guerrilla advertising. That's one of our flyers at the college. So people started making orders on this thing, and this thing starts dialing restaurants. And these restaurants, they don't know anything. They have no idea what this is, because we haven't met with any of them. So it was actually kind of interesting. They would pick up and say, Eatabit.com, incoming order for delivery, and then it would start reading these items, right? And we built prompts, which you can do with Twilio Wireless, in there so that they could accept or reject the order, 1 or 9. And if they accepted it, they could hit 15 for the minutes, right? So that we got our two pieces of information that we needed. Did the restaurant get it, and how long is it going to be? Only about 10% of restaurants actually went through it, which is actually amazing because they had no idea what it was. And the other 90%, the result was not so great. We started getting calls to us, but it was from restaurant managers super pissed off because we actually had a bug in the software where it looked like the order was paid. So these customers are going down to the restaurant like, hey, I'm here for my order. And they're like, all right, it's $25. And they're like, well, I already paid online. We don't have online ordering. What are you talking about? So we had some really pissed off owners. But we would play a little game. We'd be like, okay, sorry, we didn't mean to enable your restaurant. Let me run you down a check. I'll bring it down right now. They would meet us to get the check, but then we had our meeting, right? And now we're meeting with the guy that we couldn't meet with before, so we would turn him a little bit. We try to sell it to him there. That worked a little bit. So we were able to get a demo of this working in Charleston, but at the end of the day, that failed because it wasn't efficient on the restaurant side. The amount of time that the restaurant staff had to spend on the phone, even for a burrito order, it was like 1:20, and we were shaving white space off the WAV files just to make the calls shorter. It just didn't work. Technically it worked, but it didn't work for the restaurant because it wasn't efficient. So then we said, okay, we've got to go back. We've got to go back to square one here. We have to go back and ask ourselves, what technology does every restaurant have that we can use? Well, cellular, right? It's inside every restaurant. Let's use that. So now we have a vehicle to get the order into the restaurant, but how do we get it in their hands, right? We need to know the restaurant got it, right? That's one of our requirements. So we looked around, we said, there's printers inside these restaurants. Let's just buy a cellular printer off Amazon, repurpose it, start shipping these things out, right? There's no such thing as a cellular printer. So we said, okay, what if we tried to build it? So we went to Radio Shack, got a bunch of Arduino stuff, and that's our version 1 product. I didn't bring one with me because I didn't think it would make it through TSA. They'd probably still be asking me which wire to cut. But what would happen, and if there's any software developers here, it's a great feeling when you work on a complex piece of code and you get it to work finally, and the thing pops or the email goes, whatever. It's actually a really great feeling to work on an IoT product and get something physical to happen as well. That's a really cool feeling if you walk around the room holding a piece of paper that you printed and it took 2 months to print. So the way this thing would work is it's got it had a cellular 2G modem in it, and every 30 seconds it would go poll our API and say, hey, do I have any orders for this printer? And if it did, it would download the order. Then the whole thing would flash, sort of like our newer unit does, and beep. And the restaurant staff would just hit the button, right? So up in the upper right, this is not a great photo, but up in the upper right, that blue, it's a 2-line LCD, and there's 2 knobs control 2 values on there. It's delivery time and pickup time. So when the order comes down, the thing lights up, really loud, annoys people. They come over, they slap that Donkey Kong arcade button that we built in there, and it would release the print job, but it also send data back to our API that says, the restaurant got it, right? Because they printed it. I know they got it. And we'd read off the LCD and say it's going to be 15 minutes or whatever's on the LCD. So now we can sort of close that loop. Yeah. So moving on, we can't sell that to restaurants. We made like 3 of those, but they were just, they're in the museum right now. So we quickly moved on to the version 2 printer, which was a 3D printed case. Sounds like a great idea, not really for a hot kitchen. They do melt. So we quickly moved over to the version 3 device, just getting a bigger print head, standard paper size. But at this point, on the version 3, we had about 100 units out in the field, and we were using basically T-Mobile burner sims at this point, and the data would run out on them, which we wouldn't even know. It would just die in the field, and then we'd have to refill the data down at the store. Mental. So we looked around for sort of a business grade cell tech, and again, this is years ago, and back then it was called M2M, machine to machine, what IoT really is now. And there's a handful of companies, or there were a handful of companies doing this. So we moved over to them, and the problem with those companies, a lot of times they are resellers of each other's bandwidth, and they buy from a slice of bandwidth from their competitor. Their competitor has a deal with Vodafone. The Vodafone has a deal with Sprint, and Sprint has a deal with T-Mobile. So you end up with this human centipede of data, wireless data, and you're at the end of it. And so support was really, really tough on there. We would have nationwide blackouts and stuff. Not good. So now we come over to the version 4. This is where we moved to 3G. We were having all kinds of problems with these M2M carriers. We thought that the 2G signal, which is almost gone these days, was the problem. But we were still having sort of rolling national blackouts, and the business was not doing well because we couldn't provide the service. So right then, almost as a miracle, Twilio Programmable Wireless came out. And so the moment that we realized that was the product that we needed to go to, we had a small beta of a handful of printers on Twilio Programmable Wireless, and the rest of our fleet was on this unnamed M2M carrier. And the carrier had a blackout, but the T-Mobile Programmable Wireless SIM stayed up. So we said, okay, that's it. We swapped. We had to drive around the whole East Coast swapping SIMs over to T-Mobile, or to Programmable Wireless SIMs. So they literally saved our business. And in addition to that, we got the capability of doing Twilio Programmable Wireless commands. So remember up until the version 3, we were doing polling. Every 30 seconds, this thing would go hit the API, and that's data, right? So 4:30 in the morning, the restaurant's not open, there's no orders coming in, but we're paying for that data to go ping. So we changed over to Twilio commands, so now this thing just sits bone idle, not doing anything, not talking, not spending money on the network. And when an order comes in, command comes down, the payload of the command is a URL that this thing will then go hit over TCP/IP, pull the order down to print it. So we went from spending like $31 a month per printer on data down to below 5 by moving to commands. So, the move to Twilio it literally saved our business. The working with John and Evan on this as an early beta was really great. They would actually call us and say, hey, we're seeing a bunch of commands drop. Are you guys okay? And it was one of our partners like testing stuff or whatever. But they were actually calling us, proactively, which is unheard of. So these days we have about 2,000 of these printers out in 4 countries now, and in restaurants, and we actually have 200 printers in cannabis dispensaries. Cannabis dispensaries, they actually have the same sort of model as food ordering. If you think about it, there's in the places that is legal, there's online sales, and getting it down into the dispensary is a problem that this device is solving, which we never even dreamed about that. All right, so that's sort of how we built the product and progressed to where we are today. I wanted to actually, because the Twilio signal this year is about conversations and AI and things like that, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on that and go back to the bot, the text bot that we saw there, and just share some stuff that we learned in building that bot. Like I said, we had that as in a beta in Charleston, and we've got about 5,000-ish orders through it, and we've been tuning the workflow and the conversationality of it quite a bit. And so I don't know if you guys know what this is. This is actually, you've heard of like Mechanical Turk, AWS Mechanical Turk. Well, this actually is what that's named after. It was an 18th century chess-playing automata, and they would wheel this thing around in Europe, and it's obviously a robot up top, but below there was actually a guy down there in the cabinet manipulating a chessboard that had wires and stuff and gears hooked up to the hands of the Turk, and they wheel it around and play chess with people. Some people thought it was haunted or whatever, but some people actually came up and tried to play chess with it and tried to beat it. So the reason I show that is just to illustrate in our experience with the bot, or with bot interactions, we found it best to let the customer know as soon as possible and as elegantly as possible that this thing is a bot and it does this thing, right? Like, you can't just talk to this thing and say, hey, is Jeremy working in the back, or what's the special, or whatever. This is just for ordering food. So, if you're building something that's open conversation, obviously this is a very strict use case and the context is sort of known. People are coming to this thing to order food. So we're sort of lucky that we know that's what they're going to come do, or we're going to force them to do that, right? And so I would say, while the conversation that we had, the back and forth from starting it to finishing the order is stateful, right? Each step in that interaction is really kind of stateless. So you can really tune each step. If you know the steps and you're forcing the person through these different steps, you can tune your software to understand what's coming in from those steps, because you're looking for either pickup or delivery. That's easy. That's just a regex. But with the items and things, you can shoot that over to specialized software if you're forcing them through steps. Now, you don't want to force people to learn a syntax. You've seen some bots or something where it'll say, press 5 to list all of our products or something, and you get this long list of products and you can dive in. It's almost like a menu or something. There's only so many texts people are gonna send back and forth to do something. So by balancing having the bot manage the strict structure of the conversation, but allowing customers to speak sort of naturally or answer naturally the questions that it's asking, you really achieve a balance of power in the conversation that will keep customers coming back. Customers, I think, want to be in control of the bot. They want to know it's a bot and be in control of it. As far as bots go, again, I would say only expose what you know you can handle, because people will come and throw crazy stuff at you. We have this is a food ordering service. Late night, we get people crazy texting. I don't know, they're drunk or something, but they text crazy stuff. And this thing, this thing doesn't put up with it. It'll just say, look, do you want delivery or pickup? That's all I'm asking you right now. So with that, I got a couple minutes here, and I'll take any questions or whatever. Oh, right here.
I can see where there's still a big need for paper order systems, but it's going to have a lifetime, don't you think? Whether that's 3 years, 5 years, 7 years. So what would you think of the next generation of your offering? How's it evolved?
Yeah. Well, the biggest, I guess, competition to paper would be point of sale integrations, right? So that instead of it printing out on paper, the order comes in and it goes right into their computer system, and is now in the system of record, and that computer system probably has its own printers, right? And it flows in just like that, right? Seamlessly behind it. The staff don't interact with it in that way, right? They don't transcribe it. The issue with that currently is there's a ton of POS systems out there. They all have different APIs. Those APIs are changing. And so you really have to mount a big effort to stay on top of that. Obviously, there's bigger players and there's smaller players, but that ecosystem is very difficult to keep a handle on. And even if you do really dig into integrations and you successfully integrate with half, let's say, would be a success of POS systems, it doesn't mean the data inside there is clean. A lot of restaurants do not keep clean data in there. So you might have menu items that don't exist, or that have been changed, or there's a change to pricing on the fly, or something like that. So data cleanliness is a huge problem, even if you integrate. So coming back to answer your question, I don't see that being solved so quickly.
Have you given thought to the future of, say, people want to know the status of their order? They saw Domino's, for instance, or that's
Pizza tracker.
Prepared, put in the oven. It's
Yeah.
out of the oven.
Mm-hmm.
In a commercial, in a kitchen, restaurant kitchen environment, I don't think you're going to get them to do that. Is there any thought to how could you potentially track order status within the prepping and cooking and preparing for takeout process?
Yeah, I don't know how we would replicate a pizza tracker, right, with this system. If I texted back, can I have my phone back for a second, please? We can because we know there's. I probably should have shown this, but on the printer here, there's an LCD that can. There, it's counting down the number of minutes. Remember, said it's at 44 up there for delivery. Right now it says 15. This is pickup. We just add 30 for this restaurant for delivery, just arbitrarily. But so that's our answer to that. But you're actually talking about something deeper, where they can really almost watch the driver coming in or something. Honestly, we don't do that. We don't really have any plans for that. I don't know. I think that's a nice to have. And
we're just starting to get used to this idea of being able to micromanage something. Where is my driver? How close is my driver?
Yeah, I mean, for people who feel the need to do that, I mean, I would say maybe they've had bad experiences with services before, and they feel like they need to keep track of it. Some of that stuff is also out of our hands. For example, we're not the restaurant, so if the delivery driver has a flat tire or something happens, or the restaurant's just busy. It's almost not our. It's certainly not our problem, as our company. But I understand what you're saying, letting the user know. Yeah, we don't have that facility right now. We also kept the physical interface of this very, very simple, so it requires no training. We did that on purpose, because we thought of different UIs where you could maybe have a touch screen or something like that, but the complexity of that just ratchets up so quickly. And that's where tablets are actually, good. I'm not going to just dump on tablets all day. They have their value. But we're just coming in as a primitive and just guaranteeing the basics, right? Because we keep the system very, very simple. We try to keep the efficiency high, and keeping the complexity low goes a long way towards that. And with owning the wireless connection, not putting this on Wi-Fi rather, we own that whole connection. Like, we know we can get it there. We're not relying on anything else. So that's what I'd say.
How does the menu maintenance side of things work? Like, is there like an admin UI that the restaurant owner logs in and he changes the menu items and stuff? Or
Yeah, so there is. We program the menus in ourselves. We're working on a way to automate the ingestion of that. But that's actually a big problem because items change. One of the last things an owner or manager is going to think about is just picking up the phone or doing some other process to go alert people that this menu change has happened. So we don't really. I mean, we provide a portal for them to do that, but getting them to do that.
I would imagine there's the human side of this whole thing. It's a elegant system, but then they put on a daily special or something's out of it's off the menu that day or whatever. And they just they forget to update. So orders it for it.
Yeah, I would say. I mean, that's going to happen, right? But it would probably happen. I guess less frequently in a POS system, right? Because they're gonna, as soon as somebody orders that, they're gonna have to go ring it in. If it's not in there, they know what problem they have to fix. But restaurants are. I'm not trying to get out of this question, but restaurants are really chaotic places, and there's a million things that can happen, and that's one of them. And we haven't solved for that, but the restaurant. That's the good thing about restaurants is they're used to chaos, and they're used to being able to overcome that. I mean, on the receipt, if I was that manager and I'm like, we don't have this sandwich anymore, there's the customer's phone number right there. I can just call them and do that. I mean, it's not ideal, but it works. They can close that loop.
Yeah, I just had two quick ones. What happened if, say the printer ate the paper? That order came out, all you have is a print button. Is it smart enough to reprint the last order?
Okay, right, yeah. So I can reprint the last order here. And going back to, remember when I said that we need to do two things? We need to ensure that the restaurant got it, right? So to your question, if this had run out of paper halfway through, the thing would light up red and say refill paper, and then press print. If they refill it and then they can hit print. If it had run out in between there, it would just reprint that job. Now it doesn't tell us that they got it until it gets the full print. We track the character length and we monitor the stream to the character stream to the print head, so we know that it actually printed all the characters successfully. Yeah.
The other one was just real quick for the natural language part. Did you guys use Autopilot or kind of roll your own?
No, we rolled our own. Autopilot is very interesting. We're going to take a look at that, maybe for the conversational piece. We went through almost every natural language service that's out there, looking to see if we could push our data in there. The problem with some of this menu data is it's really deep. If you have a pizza where you can have specialty toppings on one half for one price and on the other half for the other price, building the, I guess, what would you call it, the not the synonyms, but building the or training it for that is actually really difficult, because something like I need a ride to the airport. You could say that in a bunch of different ways. We could think right now of 10 ways to say that. Put that in a training thing, and you've got a lot covered right there. But the depth and the structure of some of those deeper items, like a pizza, is actually a really complex item to deal with. We didn't find a way to make natural language processing work for that. And additionally, an additional difficulty we ran into was with text messaging. It's super short. People they're not punctuating stuff. They're not writing it in a natural grammar flow. They're dropping verbs. Whereas a human can just read that and they know exactly what's going on, right? So for some of those things, like asking pickup or delivery, or asking it to validate the delivery address or something, natural language processing surely could work for that. But really getting in and validating those items against that custom data source, the menu, we couldn't make that work with natural language processing. Anybody else? Nope.
Are you maintaining the customer's order history for reorders, simple reorders?
We have the customer history. We did a beta, or we did a whatever you call it, a flipper for asking about reorders. Not a lot of people bid on reorders. We've got people in the database who definitely reorder. I can think of this girl Claire. She orders a Meatball Hero every Wednesday night from Paisanos in Charleston. But a lot of people don't do that. It's we have to be really economical with the number of questions we ask, right? Because the longer that gets, the more fatigue people feel going through it, and especially if they get a question that doesn't really apply to them, and we don't know ahead of time if it is going to apply to them. So it's almost a risk a little bit on efficiency to ask if they want to reorder. But what we found, to answer your question, what we found is it's better not to ask for a reorder than to ask, just for efficiency of conversation, number of back and forths. Okay, I'm about to get the hook here. So thanks, guys. I'll be around. So grab me if something else pops in your head. But thank you.